And I think this is an amazing example she sets for all of us. We should be running to tell people of all that God has done for us, that is done in our life. It should excite us. There should be nothing that holds us back. You know, she could have went and just went home and went to bed, held it all inside, but no, she told everybody. And she says, listen, guys, he knew everything about me, which means he knew all about my husbands and the one I'm not with right now. At least that's all we know that he said. But that was enough that he shouldn't have known. She's like, man, this guy is something else. He knew everything about me. And then she shared this, what Jesus did, her experience with Jesus, what Jesus did to her. He shares this with them as evidence that Jesus is who he says he was. He says, listen, this is what he did. He knew everything about me. Then he said he's the Messiah. That seems like pretty good evidence that he was telling the truth. And as a result, many people in this town, they begin to believe in Jesus. They're like, oh, maybe he is the Messiah. Man, if what she's saying is true, that's pretty incredible. I mean, we want to know more. And one thing that really struck me with this is that I think we need to understand that our testimony has the potential to stir up a curiosity in people's lives that they'll want to know more, that it can get them started on the journey of beginning to trust in the Lord. And for each and every one of us, we should be doing the same thing as this woman. We should begin to remember how excited we were when we first got born again and realized that we were saved, we were set free. So many of us have been Christians for so long that we've almost become jaded to the fact of how incredible it is what God did for us. And most of us who have been Christians for a long time, we have a lifetime of evidence of what God has done in our lives. We have a lifetime of the miracles that have happened. So we should be sharing this with others at every opportunity. We should have to be being held back. Well, but I don't want to offend anybody, Pastor Wayne. I don't want to hurt anybody. You know, in today's society, people might be awful to me. I mean, they could go as far as teasing me. And you don't know how bad it could be. And we're told that we can't share. We're told not to share religion and politics, right? Don't talk about religion and politics. And we've done that for so long that none of us know how to talk about religion and politics. We don't know how to have a civil conversation because we've never actually done it. But we should have to be held back. And here's the thing. If you really believe what you say you believe, then you're kind of a terrible person to not share that. If you believe that Jesus is the only way to heaven, if somebody doesn't have Christ, if they don't have the Lord, if they're not saved, that they are going to spend eternity away from God in hell with the rest of his demons, if you really believe that, you're kind of an awful person if you don't tell other people about it. It'd be like seeing someone running towards a burning building and you're like, I know that place is on fire, and if he goes in, he's not going to get out, he's going to die, but I'll just let him go. That's essentially what we're doing. So what does this look like? How do you share your testimony to make an impact? And I can't tell you what yours looks like, but I can tell you what it looks like for me. I can tell you that for me, I can share with people that, you know what, if it wasn't for Jesus Christ, I wouldn't be here this morning and I wouldn't be married to my beautiful wife. Because before I gave my life to the Lord fully, I was always quasi-saved. You know, I always kind of believed, but I was always halfway in, halfway out. I was that lukewarm. That's not enough. You got to be sold out. You got to be a disciple. But when you are, your life will change. And because of that decision, my wife and I both made to serve the Lord, our relationship was mended. Our marriage was strengthened. And I truly believe that my marriage is stronger than everybody in here in this room. I won't be convinced otherwise because I have the strongest marriage that I know of. You're going to have to try hard to convince me otherwise. Because God changed our life. I don't think you understand how close she was to leaving me. I didn't understand. I didn't find out till later. I was oblivious because men are kind of stupid to this stuff most of the time. I thought everything. I look back now and I'm like, oh, I see it now. But at the time, I was oblivious. She almost left me. I almost didn't have a wife. I wouldn't have been here. My life would have been completely different. But God stepped in when we put our trust in him and he restored everything. And it's always funny now because we talk to people And people are always amazed when we tell people we would actually rather spend time with one another than going out and doing the other things. Like our coworkers will always say it. They went to this that Guatemalan mission trip where they were doing the medical mission trip, and she was telling, man, I'm just excited to get back to my husband. And they're all like, why? Don't you like being away from him? And she's like, no, I actually like being with him. And I like being with her because our relationship is strong because it's centered around Jesus Christ. Without Christ, it couldn't be like that. You know what? That's a pretty amazing testimony. And people see our relationship, and they can see that. They can see the love that we have, and they see that. If they want that, I can say, you know what? If you want that, here's what you got to do. You got to put Christ first. You got to get born again. You got to put him first if you want it, because it's the only way you can have it. In addition, God took us from being flat broke, filing for bankruptcy, not having anything, to being completely financially stable. And it's amazing because he didn't give it to us all at once, because when we were being stupid with money, if he'd have gave us a bunch of money, we'd be stupid with a bunch of money. That's the only difference, right? But as we began to trust him, as we began to give faithfully and say, you know what, God, we're going to trust you. We're going to give to you. We're going to be faithful. He has continued to be faithful all through all these years, and we continue to have increase. And as he gives us increase, we continue to give more, help more, do more. And then he's like, well, I guess they're being smart with the money. They're going to be wise with what I give them. I'll give them a little bit more. Just like the parable of the talents. He says, take this one away from him and give it to the one that had the 10, because I know he's going to do right with it. That's a pretty amazing testimony. How is it, Pastor Wayne, that the economy looks like it's about to blow up and everything's going crazy and the stock market's cry? How is it that you're so confident? You're not worried about money. Matter of fact, guys, last week in our Bible study, I asked you whether I have a potential opportunity at work to get a raise, to get a promotion. And as of now, it looks pretty much like that's going to happen. God is faithful. He continues to make sure that I have increase so that I can continue to do good things with it, to work for him. He always makes a way. So in the midst of everything else going crazy for everyone else, I'm probably going to get a promotion. In the midst of the stock market crashing and inflation going through the roof, I'm not concerned because I know my God will take care of me. And I can say, Pastor Wayne, how can you feel like that? Aren't you afraid? No. Do you want to not be afraid? Let me tell you about Jesus. That's a testimony. And there's more than that. One of the greatest things that God has done to me is changed how view is not the right word, but long story short, I'm not as selfish as I used to be. He has taught me how to love others better and not be so concerned about myself. And it's funny, you might think, I'm not selfish. I thought that too. But I look back, it's funny when you look back and go, oh, now I see it. But the truth is, God has completely transformed me. He's made me more compassionate, more loving. And because of what he did in my life. Well, how do you know that was God? Because before God, I wasn't like that. If it was just something that was going to happen, don't you think it would have happened? If that was something intrinsic to me, it would have always been that way. But no, it wasn't until God saved me that he made me brand new, that I began to live like that my life began to change. That's an amazing testimony. And then all of you guys, some of you know the story of my daughter, but suffice it to say, she had some pretty severe medical issues. And I would say some pretty severe spiritual issues. And long story short, we laid hands on her, and almost all of it is gone, completely healed. And when I say that this is a miracle, I don't mean like she used to get headaches and now they're better. This is pretty significant and serious, and I won't share it all because I actually haven't asked her if I could share it all. But the reality is that it was a supernatural miracle what happened in her life. God did that. And you know what's funny? When we were going through it, it seemed like nothing was changing. We prayed for years, nothing was happening. And we had a pastor come down to us and said, you know what? I want to encourage you because my daughter had something very similar. We thought we lost her. We thought there was no way out. Then God healed her. And that encouraged our faith. And then it was in the next year or so that God began to heal Allison. And as of now, while it's not 100% almost everything is completely restored, and we're believing for the rest because God is faithful. And you know what? If somebody's struggling with somebody that's sick or hurting, that's a testimony that I can share to introduce them. And the reality is, if I'm being honest, sometimes I forget. The truth is that in many ways, God has blessed me so much that it's almost easy to forget. It's miraculous. It becomes commonplace. And then we don't share it with others because that's just our norm. And the church, that should be your norm, but you got to not forget that that's amazing. And share it with others and encourage others. This woman, he said, he knew everything about me. You're not going to believe this. I found him, she told everybody. I got to imagine there were some people in that town that didn't like her. She didn't like. She still told them too. Church, you have similar stories. You have similar testimonies that you can share. And if you just take a second to think, you might even have forgotten how good God has been to you. Share those things with others so that they might have the opportunity to hear his word.